And now we are going to transition into our scanner anomaly for the evening, courtesy of Nazeris. So, if you are new to the podcast, we do two primary dedicated segments. Scanner anomalies, being on the theme of, we're Pathfinders and we're charting the way through all the nebulous information surrounding Star Citizen and its development. A scanner anomaly is, there is something that's being developed or something that is going to eventually be developed that is nebulous, that doesn't, the information isn't well understood, or it isn't out there and, as available to the masses, and so a lot of times, Naz or I will run into things where we're like, oh, you know what, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, or, I didn't realize this, and I think I should share this information that I found, or help uh, share, it sheds some more light on information that probably isn't as as much read or well known. When we do our spectrum, and those are individual things. Like this is Nazaris' scanner anomaly. This is his research and his work. Last week's was mine. When we do a spectrum pulse, it's a combined effort between the two of us. We are always on the lookout for topics that are topics of discussion, either on Discord, and we say spectrum pulse, and it's like you're sending out a pulse, across the spectrum of the verse, or across, the spectrum, in game, like it's the in-game version of the internet or in-universe version. And we try to keep our pulse on spectrum to see what people are talking about and see what questions people have, what are topics of debate or things that people have questions on, and try and collect as much information and present it in a sort of unbiased format, with all the sources that we can find, and then follow it up with a little bit of a subjective interpretation. So that's what we do. And this evening, I gave it a quirky title because that's what I do, because I'm a dad and I do dad jokes, but we're calling it Weird Science.
Of course we are. Perfect name. That is VOD. There we
go. I've got the Reliant Sin Galactic. I pulled them up based off the order on the OneNote. Does that look right?
I don't know. I can't see the top bar. It's obscured by the graphics.
Well, like if you open up the OneNote, I think I got them. The Reliant Sin is the first article that you had on the OneNote.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
There is also links to images specifically. If you want,
I got all the articles and all the images, and I think I got them all in order as you had them on the OneNote. So as you go through your notes, just tell me to switch to the next image and what it is, and I'll do that. All right. To get started, I'm going to mute myself and go pee really quick.
All right. So, science, and specifically the gameplay of science in Star Citizen, something that has been longed for, raged for, asked for, tweeted about, posted about, anything, any number of things. But nobody has answered me yet. And I've been asking this for probably the last year. What is science gameplay? What are you doing? Nobody's answered me. And I went through this this amount of information I have to present this presentation 2 or 3 times to make sure I cut out anything that is related to scanning, pathfinding, and exploration. That is not what we're talking about in this presentation. This is specifically science, and I guess the tack on for that can be research. So science is the kind of catch-all for stuff that they want to add in that, like, kind of researchy kind of mentality. So let's go through some of the articles that we know from CIG and some of these ships that will be assisting us in the science gameplay career. Blowing yourself up for the sake of experimentation will actually come in later, so stay tuned for why that is actually relevant to science gameplay for Star Citizen. So the Reliant Sen, or the Reliant Science, The Galactopedia article says the Reliant Sen is a variant of the Reliant spacecraft developed by Musashi Industrial and Starfleet Concerned that adapts the core platform, KORE, cat, don't sit on buttons, for a use as a single ship explorer and science platform. The spacecraft comes pre-configured with a digital scanner suite and support when operating. The similarly misc-produced Endeavour science ship have adopted the Reliant Sen as part of their standard fleet or fleets. So not only does this have a science platform or is a science platform, like it does say Explorer and Science. So we have to make sure everything we look at for the Sen, we take its Explorer bits and remove those. We can talk about the science bits. So the scanner suite, that's exploration. That's not really relevant to us. But the seat on the inside, if you want to show the interior shot of the Sen, we have this console and this cabinet. That one. Yep.
I got it.
We have like a microscope and this kind of like computer console. We also have a console behind it that looks a lot like the medical console in the CR. Of course, this is a wildly old concept of a ship. So I imagine this will have changed a lot since then. But we can imagine what they're trying to tell us with the art, or what the artists are trying to tell us they think science would be with this. So we'd have something to look at through the microscope and something to analyze through the computer. So we'll keep those kind of in the back of our head as we move on to what the article says in the comlink. So in the comlink for the MISC Reliant variants, it said Magellan, Pierce, Croshaw, names that could echo through history, thanks to their adventurous spirit, a curious nature, and a reliable ship. The Reliant Sen is a versatile mobile science platform again, outfitted with long-range capabilities to take you further, longer, and more advanced sensors, and a more advanced sensor suite. Perfect for aspiring explorers who want to whisper their name in the halls of history. So that is a much more explorer type kind of paragraph, but it again mentions being a science platform, but also a good explorer with long range and the sensor suite. However, it also mentioned, like I said, the longer range capabilities. So this is not necessarily a stick in one place kind of science thing. It's go to where there is science to do and do science there. All of the air quotes. Sounds like homework. Oh no. So moving on from the Sen, Tree actually found something. I swear I knew about this, but I didn't front of brain know about this. Back of brain knew what this was. But he found a really interesting article on the Galactopedia, research drones. And I don't think we covered these in our drones episode.
Well, so I think this.
So
I don't know when this article popped up. I don't know how I missed it.
Mm-hmm.
But so I did. I did lore equals gameplay on Sunday, and so I was looking at the February Galactopedia update, and this was one of the articles that was like down in the related articles section for one of the ones I was looking at, and I was like, whoa, what's a research drone? I have never heard of this. How did I miss this? Because yeah, we did a Spectrum Pulse on drones and drone gameplay, and this was not there. This was not. So this is I don't know when this article was added to the Galactopedia, but it was not when we did our drone Spectrum Pulse. It was not there because I know we searched Galactopedia for for drones, and this wasn't available.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you want to pull up the drone image while I talk about read the paragraph or the thing on drones.
Sure.
The article says research drones are automated, self-propelled devices that can be remotely controlled through dangerous and otherwise inhospitable environments. They can also be used to collect hazardous materials and perform limited on-the-spot computer analysis. Drone operators with enough clearance from the UEE, or the United Empire Earth Government, can use research drones in systems protected by the Fair Chance Act. This is a major idea of what they think science gameplay is going to be. They line up several possibilities of gameplay, actual just straight up gameplay. So you're piloting a drone in inhospitable places, so basically places you can't go but robots can. You're collecting things that you are going to later perform analyses on, and you can even do some technically exploratory work, but in fair chance act systems. So it's much more, that kind of exploration is more like a social exploration, which does fall under science, in my opinion. Whereas we're keeping scanning, surveying, and looking for new star systems in its own category, even though they technically would fall under the bigger umbrella of sciences. So that's just how we're going to frame the presentation for today.
The example that I thought of is the today's Galactopedia update included the Genesis system, and it's I think it's Genesis 2. The Genesis system is a developing system. Genesis 2, I think it is, has 2 sentient species on it, and these 2 sentient species are actually like in a war. Because they're like a developing species. They're like like caveman level, I guess, but that they have. As the sea-dwelling species has started to come up on land, it has sparked a conflict between them and the dominant land-based species. But if you have the reputation with the UEE or some UEE-sponsored research science organization, you can fly your research drone down to this planet and take samples of plants or other minerals and things on the planet that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise in order to do whatever experiments you are. And so it falls under exploration. Oh, I found this new plant, but you could also do an experiment on that plant to, okay, we found this chemical and has these properties, and we can now synthesize it without having to go down to the plant and get samples or whatever. Or we can now clone this plant and plant it somewhere else in order to produce it for whatever. And because when you you told me you're doing science gameplay for your scanner anomaly, and then I saw this research drone on Sunday, and I was like, holy crap, this fits perfectly. And I'd never seen it, never heard of it. How did I miss this? And so I thought, and then of course Genesis popped up today, and I was like, oh, this is so serendipitous. This is really cool.
Absolutely.
You just have to watch out for the sentient species on Genesis. Them throwing spears and rocks and stuff at your drone. It's probably going to be expensive, and it might not be covered.
Ghostman makes a really good point with crashing a drone and later the drone becomes their god. The reason Fair Chance Act plants are behind the UE is so that doesn't happen. The chances that you get enough reputation to do science on these planets legally, and you are bad enough to crash your drone in somewhere they'll find it, that's why the whole gate exists. So you're not that bad at piloting a drone before you do. You need to have a reputation with the UE to make sure that you're not going to interfere with the species. Prime directive here applies. And moving on to everyone's favorite science vessel, the Endeavor. Specifically, currently, we'll talk about the Discovery module first. This one is actually a bit of a paragraph, or several paragraphs. The Discovery module, yes.
Design notes?
The Discovery module, Design, Science, and the Endeavor.
Let's see.
Maybe Design Notes? It is Design Notes.
All right. So Discovery module. There we go. Okay.
Yep. All right. The Discovery module is geared towards the aspiring astronomer. It contains a powerful 16-meter telescope mounted on a rotatable base that is capable of scanning the heavens in infrared, visible, and gamma spectra, as well as a dual injection port for an array of long-range probes. Wayward comets, asteroid fields rich in valuable ores, detect ships worth a fortune to a salvager, and primordial black holes that are the holy grail of scientific research. Are just a few things that a patient observer might eventually discover. Detection of something that interests typically consists of selecting an area of the sky and slowly searching for anomalies. I think that's something about the podcast. An object that appears to be nothing more than another in a dense sea of stars might eventually reveal itself to be something different via its ever so gradual motion against the static backdrop. Alternatively, an object might emit a radiation signature that suggests something out of the ordinary. Or in the case of a large field of asteroids, its most detectable aspect might be the fact that it blocks a portion of the background star's radiation, which might be noticed by the stars twinkling. It imparts upon light from that particular star. Increasing the magnification of the telescope can often help us ascertain what an object might be, if not always what it definitely is. There we go. I can read words. Such adjustments, however, take several seconds to perform. And additionally, any increase in magnification amplifies a straight, I don't know how that word, decrease in the field of view. Commensurate decrease in the field of view. I not run into that word very much. I know that's a word, I've not run into it much. Yeah, which means that scanning the entirety of the sky at high magnification isn't particularly feasible within a reasonable period of time. Thus, the ability to discern subtle clues at high levels of magnification indicate a fair probability of finding something of interest if one were to probe deeper into the cosmic tapestry with the Endeavor's telescope is one of the most valuable abilities a discoverer can learn. When coupled with a methodical approach to analyzing a volume of space, a regular stream of discoveries and a steady source of income is all but assured. While some objects, comets in particular, with their long wispy tails can be definitively identified if viewed at sufficient magnification, others will require a long-range probe to be dispatched in order to attain such certainty. Once a positive identification has been made, a point of interest representing the discovery will appear on the player's navigational map of the solar system. At that point, the information can be shared with other players or sold to an information broker. So, lots of words. However, and a lot of this does very much overlap with exploration, except this is exploration a la science. This is not, this is not exploration for the sake of finding new worlds. This is exploration for finding science. And it says several times that you're not looking for things, you're looking for data of things. With the consistency of asteroids, the black holes, you're not looking for just the location, you're looking for specific attributes of said locations. And it mentioned time twice. So this is not something that you just, point sky and click, oh, I have data now. You need to hone in on specific signals, specific areas of space, send probes out there. So this is the kind of the exploration side of science. You're looking for data on things in space, not just locations like exploration would be. So how the kind of timeline goes, it's exploration. It's either exploration or this exploration science can be done interchangeably. But after either of those, if some location is found, surveyors move in. If some data is found, scientists move in. So it kind of splits the two chains right there. So It is technically like if you just point your telescope in the sky, yes, there's a planet up there. That is technically location data. Is you explored that, but now you can either scan it and put some effort into seeing what is there, or you can just say, okay, that's the exploration data. We can give that. There's nothing relevant there at this range, so we can send a probe and wait back and see what it comes back with in a few days to see if that's worth scientifically exploring. If not, move on. And that data is almost useless to you, if not just to hand off to some surveying company or data broker, as I mentioned. So now in the MISC Endeavor QA Part 2, where they talked about the defense module and the super collider. So in the defense module, somebody asked the question, can you go into further detail about the defense module, what it is, can it be installed with the medical module as well? The reason I pulled this out is because it does say science specifically as a resource in here. So it says the defense module is still in early planning stages, and this was way back, so super early, not really constituting in a stage. But we intend it to be a similar plug-in turret module on the whole through ship, essentially taking up one pair of slots to add turrets, e-warfare defense, weapons, or similar weapons to your Endeavor complement, at a cost of overall reduced science. Now, this is mostly a throwaway paragraph, but it at least would set a precedent for a science resource. Because how it's just worded, just at reduced overall science. He didn't say ability to do science, it just said reduced science. So I'm just saying it's mostly throwaway, that one, but it's there. So just take what you want, throw out the rest. The Endeavor Super Collider is the Endeavor Super Collider the only way to have equipment overclocked? And they answered no. Chris outlined his plans for a robust overclocking system in the early game in hopes that players will eventually make careers out of being overclockers or overclocking experts capable of providing the best tuned weapons and other components, while we see the Endeavor Super Collider, name change pending, re-science, as the ultimate tool for this task. The climb to that level will start with the already aforementioned workbench. So, part of like science is one of those like gels in between a lot of different gameplay, and this would be the gel between engineering gameplay. And for this application of science, it's more research and pushing dials until it says no. So much like overclocking a computer, you change a couple numbers, and we'll get to the difference between blowing stuff up for no reason and writing stuff down for science. Some of you probably know where I'm going with that. So, moving on to the Galactopedia update, or Galactopedia article about the Endeavor. It says, the Endeavor is a research spacecraft platform developed by MISC with a modular back-end design to be adapted to multiple roles. A capital-class spacecraft can be built to include research labs, spacecraft docking bays, biodomes, hospitals, facilities, and additional fuselage. The front end can be detached from the rest of the vessel and autonomously piloted. Popular configurations include the Discovery-class science ship, Hope-class hospital ship, and the Olympic-class agricultural ship. Just want to put that in there to, make sure everyone knew the MISC, what it generally is. In case you don't already know. Most people in the chat, I already know they know, because they say Endeavor basically every stream. And then we have the multi-purpose pods. Which article is? I don't know. The Research Unbounded, the MISC Endeavor, the pods, specifically the multi-purpose image of the pods. And this is where I put these specifically last in the lineup. Yes, that one. Because there's a lot of gameplay implied in these two paragraphs here. So in this picture, we have general science pods, service equipment and crew, general research pods, and fuel in this setup in the image. So general research pods. The General Research Pod, or GRP, is intended as a multi-use facility that can support a variety of active science pursuits. Microscopy, zero-gravity experiments, biological studies, and the like. They leave it open for people to just assume. With internal slots for precision scanners, sample and specimen collection, spectrometer chemical analysis, the GRP is capable of cataloging new experimental data as well as producing cutting-edge compounds. So now we have a new player, a new challenger arrived, crafting. Not only analyzing things, but also crafting new things, which has been done in other games, so it's not unheard of. Is hard, but not unheard of. Especially in a game like Star Citizen will be very hard. Note the GRP. Note the GRP is intended for legal experimentation as authorized by the UEE only. Yeah, get out of here. The
Very
general
heavy air quotes.
science. Yes. Oh, heavy air quotes, like cinder block air quotes. The general science pod. The general science pod, or GSP, is the Endeavor's analytic module with installed installation points for a variety of scientific computers and data banks. The GSP is oriented towards inward-facing processing of data gathered elsewhere, featuring extensive systems for tuning the raw information gathered by the GRP and telescope array into valuable data for sell or trade. That is very important to what at least they have thought of gameplay. GRP is where you interact with other things, whether that be gravity, samples that you bring under a microscope, atoms that you're trying to arrange to create a new compound, biological studies on creatures or fleshy bits, or analyzing with the spectrometer. And also, they leave it open for other types of computers. The science in the GSP is for taking that data and turning it into a commodity. Basically, you can, poke a frog with a stick, but the GSP is where that poking with a stick turns into written down science commodity, that information that you can sell. What that ends up being useful for players, that's kind of the hazier side of this entire thing. If science data is going to be useful, well, that kind of science, poking frog with a stick kind of science, useful for players. We know that overclocking is very useful for players because, it can get a batch repeater firing faster or firing harder. It's pretty self-explanatory. It can make things better.
You developed a compound, and then you converting those notes into a recipe that you can sell, especially for I think you muted for
absolutely, yeah.
Especially for like medicine stuff, or maybe additives for fuel and making other combinations. Those sorts. I could see that, especially.
We could even take it let's assume like this is the most open game ever created. Okay, you end up going down to one of those Fair Chance Act planets. So not a lot of people have access. So most of the stuff there is not exactly searched through. You find a plant that does pretty well at deflecting bullets. You bring that back to the Endeavor. You put it through your research module. When you find out there's a way to synthesize this, and you science it into, you research, and you turn it into a organic version of ship armor.
Yeah,
that is how
some sort of coating kind of that you can apply.
Yes, living ship armor, regenerative ship armor, that kind of thing. So there's a lot there, and actually, I was not expecting as much gameplay implied in all the stuff we've had, because mostly they dodged the question, what is science? So we've talked about gathering data about not just locations, but compositions of locations, specimens, whether that be plant, biological, or geological, to put into different research things to find out different status of these things, whether that be infrared, radiation, spectrometry. Oh gosh, I can't even do that word. And then to catalog that data into stuff you can use or sell. So a lot of it is going to be, I have a thing, I sit in front of a computer playing whatever mini game they use to ascertain data from that object, or looking for an object with specific attributes with the telescope. Also the engineering. So what are some other games? What have other games done with science gameplay? These are about four that I thought of that I put here. I'm sure other people in chat or watching this later on will have. So if you guys know of any games, TV shows, or movies that have some science activity, definitely put those whether in chat or in the comments down below the video when this hits YouTube. So the first one I got is Factorio, the flat version of Satisfactory. Factorio. Factorio does science points like nobody else. You are tasked with crafting different colors of science and then throwing them into a building to science, and that helps you get points to advance a tech tree. That's how they do science. It's a thing you craft to further along a tech tree. That tech tree is actually going to stay with us through the entire discussion of other games. Most of other games that I could think of were to apply to some tech tree. So if you guys know of a science or research thing that is not based on a tech tree, let me know. Research with all the colors of the rainbow or the wind. So the next one being Satisfactory, the one I tried to say first. This one is slightly more environmentally based. You have to get resources from the environment to put into the researcher to advance the tech tree, whether that be things you have to build to combine to research, or different plants or creatures in the environment you have to get samples of to then research in given tech tree. So that's kind of a more granular kind of, not just research tech tree or tech or research kind of points. It's specifically, I'm trying to research this thing. Like sulfur is a good one. You have to make it through the sulfur tech tree to get things like explosives for obvious reasons. So it's I want to research this thing, and we're going through and researching different facets of this primary resource. The next one being Stellaris. Cat, you're like on my mouse. I need you not to be. Stellaris is a very interesting one as far as science gameplay goes, but after reading about the Endeavor's telescope, this one kind of has some merit. So in Stellaris, you have plants or buildings that you can make that give you, again, science points in 3 given areas, being physics, society, and engineering. You also have planets that you can scan and put stations around that give you a boost in said points. So it is a accrual of ethereal points still, much like Satisfactory or Factorio is just build colored thing to accrue research points. Very much the same, but it is to also progress a tech tree. So you use those points, whether of those 3 types of sciences, to progress in those given sciences from the buildings and stations you build around planets and on planets. And finally, for demonstrative purposes, the games I lined up, I don't know, the words escaped me. Astroneer. The final one I got was Astroneer. And the reason being, this is kind of different, but it kind of falls in the same vein. It's kind of the in-between between Factorio and Satisfactory. So in Astroneer, you have to collect these kind of knobs around the environment and put them in a researcher to then accrue you bits or bytes, which are your research commodity, which then you apply to researching or buying new blueprints that you can print. So that is the games I've lined up for kind of reference. We're going to move on to science in movies and TV shows. I think the one that would spring to everyone's mind is in words, Star Trek. Obviously, like Star Trek has always been very focused on a lot of these sciences around, except for DS9. DS9 was much more social science than the rest of them. But TNG, which was my kind of Star Trek, was very focused, and they had many episodes where it was just science. And they had, most of the time, it was a lot of standing around console doing science. And they were specifically trying to figure out a problem with X resource, whether that be like gravitons or alpha particles or Z waves or something. They were trying to manipulate these resources in a way to find out some solution or find out the problem they were having to find a solution. So that's kind of that problem. Either you have a problem or you're looking for the problem to find the solution, which we talked about with the Endeavor and the science, the GSP and the GRP, working those kind of sciences to find your solutions. And the last reference I have, which is kind of a much more applied science, even a version of science that is in the game right now, Mythbusters. And I picked this image very specifically for Mythbusters. Remember, kids, the only difference between screwing around and science is writing things down. For YouTubers, that's kind of easy because like the documentation's there. It exists on YouTube. But to figure out things, like I did science for trying to homestead in the PTU. I didn't technically write anything down, but I took advantage of the internet being forever. But I found out that it was not exactly feasible right now without being able to choose your server you log into to take all your stuff and throw it on a planet and call it a homestead. But I did that several times in a row to figure out where it breaks, to where you can do it. You can actually get many materials on a planet to run rather well. I also learned that you couldn't log out at the edges of armistice zones in landing zones. So during the PTU, I did all this research actively for in-game mechanics to find my answer of, can you homestead in 318? I mean, the answer was no, but we did the science. Smithy even helped. So we were there. We did the work. We didn't technically write anything down. I don't think there's anything like explicitly. But the evidence lives on YouTube. Yeah. I would say even Shimposter was there. So we did some science. Even people that there are countless YouTube channels that okay, how much damage does this gun do? Can I use the handgun on a ship? Does this shield do X thing? That is still the glue between science and engineering. And there's a lot of physics and science that you can do in game still right now. So with all that, how could science work? And I don't have any images for this. This is kind of the end where we talk about, me and Tree and you guys in chat and you guys later on in the comments, how could science work? So we've talked about running simulations, doing tests on specimen, and applied testing, actively doing something like trying to homestead or throwing rocks at ships, jumping out of a ship and falling back into the ship in atmosphere. Beams. No! Beams go away. No science beams. You're banned.
You know my stance on beams. Certain things, okay. Others, not so much.
Telescope counts a beam.
Well, it's been a long time since I read since I read this one and read the descriptions of the two, the research pod and the science pod.
Mm-hmm.
And just between those two paragraphs, it gives you a really good idea. I mean, obviously, there isn't granular details, but but
you can see they thought about it.
Yeah, they thought about it, and there's a loose framework that you could easily, the gameplay designers could easily fill in, especially with the mechanics that they're already developing or already have further planned. And in context with what you were talking about, from the other sources, like, the research drone, collecting samples, or like you're flying around in your Reliant Sen. One of the concept images of the Reliant Sen, shows it has an airlock with a suit locker. Okay, well, you land your Reliant, and you get into your suit and you go out and you take a sample, and you bring it back in and you do an analysis on it, and you can, they talked about how the Reliant Sen, gets paired with Endeavors. Well, what if your Reliant Sen is the scout craft and you go get a sample, and then you scan that sample with your whatever machine, inside your Reliant, and you send that data back to your Endeavor, and then the Endeavor can
Like,
take that information and you know synthesize it into data to sell, using the general science pod, or you could plug that into a simulation device, with the research pod, in order to make a compound. Be like, okay, you know I've got, I found a sample of this plant on this planet,
mhm.
or of this mineral, and I scanned it and it has these properties, and then use this device back on the Endeavor in order to in order to combine those properties with other things of other properties, and you have some sort of active gameplay where you're using the device in order to try and find a combination that generates a value, or generates a compound with values, and
Mhm.
you know it, I wouldn't want something simple like, you're okay. Well, I'm gonna plug this compound in here, and then I'm gonna you know
I
pull the
think, where
lever
was it?
like
It
I'm
was,
you know. But
I forget where it was. It was I think it was in the discovery module. Ah, yes. The last sentence of the second to last paragraph. When coupled with a methodical approach to analysis, a volume of space, a regular stream of discoveries, and a steady source of income. So I imagine there's going to be both, like the pull lever, like start a simulation to gather data. That'll be your passive income. But also, this
Mhm.
rock is interesting. I need to do some specific, like, spectral analysis on this rock.
Yep.
And that way you can get a higher payout by using the full capabilities of whatever ship. Even if it's a Reliant Sen, it has a computer to run small scale simulations on smaller things, and a research table with the microscope to do both of those sciences at one time.
And it could
So
be
I think that.
doing that in order to generate data to make a compound within the Endeavor, or doing
Mhm,
something as part of a contract. Like, we need you
mhm.
to, we have a report of this plant. We need you to go to this, or this mineral, and you can find it, in this general area. Go
Ooh.
there, find some, and do a scan, do some research, and then send us back the data, and we'll pay you. And that's how you get rep
Pat.
with you know whichever organization, in order to get the ability to use your research drones for the big ticket research projects on the Fair Chance Act systems. You're
Northern Trooper asked, could science be something more on the industrial instead of the exploration? So we've talked a lot about the exploration side.
yeah.
Industrial applications are very, like, obvious for geological. Like, once you find a resource, let's say using the deep space scanner, or even um, something comes up on a surveying trip, you need to send some scientists down there. They find, oh, it's a big vein of X resource. Well, now you have something to research, to do your science on, and that will be very applicable to, let's just throw one out there, setting up a UGF.
Hmm.
And something I just thought of, UGFs again are going to be facilitating any kind of gameplay, which means there could be a research lab inside of a UGF that you take a mission to go be on a research team to do some specific form of research in the UGF. So a
Ooh,
location
or
for research.
what if you use the research pod and you took different minerals, and you worked on combining them in different ways in order to create a new like a new lens for a mining laser to give it a certain property. You could use that for we talked about researching compounds in order to create fuel additives, in order to stabilize quantum fuel, or you could maybe you could use it in order to research and then produce making an additive to make transportation of quantum fuel safer, or you get better range and or speed or thrust properties out of your hydrogen fuel or whatever inert gas that you're using, or
fuel mixers is another one that kind of like again borders on that like engineering side, even like kind of borders between engineering and chemical science. Like I said, like science becomes this like goo in between all these different careers in Star Citizen.
Yeah, well, and
stealth. I'm not sure how stealth works.
For me, stealth means I'm going to make a new sedative and walk up behind you and jab you in the neck.
No, I can see to that one.
That's the
brighter headlights. Yes, I'm going to research the heck out of headlights.
Yeah, but you could probably create compounds, both illicit and medicinal, in order to especially coupled with the exploration part, because you don't necessarily have to sell it to the UEE. You could just keep it for yourself in order to give your people an edge, or give an allied group an edge. There's a lot of possibilities, and especially with how they could easily randomize values into different plants and all sorts of flora and minerals and metals and stuff, in order to science could be you have you're doing experiments on different metals, or metal compounds, in order to find oh, okay, I found a new metal compound, and you're going to use that for repairing your ship, and it's actually going to improve your damage resistance. There's a lot of different ways that they could do it, and do it in ways where the devs don't have to put a lot of effort into the values that they put into different things that you are collecting to do experiments on. They could almost just randomize it, or as they add things, in a way that, okay, this is a system, and then let's see what the players just figure out. It isn't intended. It just goes the way it goes.
Much like future exploration for planets that are not on the map. For what I'm talking about, go watch the hundreds of Journey to 100 Planets. So yeah, that's what I had. That is like, we actually have a decent idea what the gameplay of science is, which I was not expecting to actually find out going into this.
And it's not like we have details like from a first-person perspective, seen on ISC.
Right.
But from the information that you garnered and that we have available, we can get a good high-level view of what CIG, the direction they want to go with it. And it's different than just, I'm going to generate science points in order to unlock a technology. It's I'm going to use devices and go exploring and collect samples. And, I imagine there's going to be mini games associated with using the devices, just like with hacking, Yeah.
Yep. So that's what I got.
That was really good. No, I really, I am far more excited for science gameplay in Star Citizen than I am, than I would be in any other game, just because the the traditional method is just so, it's tired, and just from the,
but also you also get not only the science game, you also get the backdrop of the entire rest of the game. So if one day you're like, okay, I'm bored of finding nothing but, iron in this moon all day. I'm gonna go take the afternoon and go do some racing.
Yep.
Like that's Star Citizen. You can just cut and do something else.
The other thing
that backdrop is very valuable.
One more thing, and after that it's already after 10 o'clock, and unfortunately I have to get up pretty early in the morning, so we're gonna have to cut it off.
No worries.
Minutes, but so I do the lore equals gameplay segments. I always read all the Galactopedia updates and the lore pieces. If you go through the Galactopedia and you look at all these organizations and locations, you just use do a search of the keyword science or research, and you'll get a bunch of hits, especially on research, for different research stations where scientific groups are located throughout the verse doing different experiments. I specifically
didn't go into all the companies that had science.
Oh yeah,
attributed to them. Like there's a ton of stuff.
It doesn't tell you much about the gameplay as far as from a first-person perspective, but I imagine in order to get started with science gameplay, you could go to these locations and work with the science teams there using their equipment, and go there.
There's also
a mission giver. Hey, I need you to go get some of these samples. Go collect 10 of this, bring them back here, use that device, and conduct this experiment. And then you do, that's your introduction to the science gameplay. If you want to do more with it, you can build up into that and, get your Reliance Sen, use your Carrack, your Endeavor. But,
there's also like the Reliance Sen.
To do it.
Yeah, there's also like the Reliance Sen or the art we have for the Endeavor, the artist cues of kind of things, like narrative signed off on these arts. So when we go into a Riari outpost or a Terra Mills outpost, the art there speaks what their intent was with, intent was with science.
In the med bay, on the other side of the med bay.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got all that stuff for doing science
in the
work.
CR even. There's still some science, like whispers in the art. So there's definitely places to look for inferred future gameplay. So I actually really enjoyed this whole part. Like I was not expecting to find so much actual evidence for future gameplay. So
you can't really see it on the screen, but there's a lot of tabs up here at the top. And there's a lot of information. So again, and this is towards the tail end of the episode. Everything that Nazeris found, all the links, all the pictures, this is in our, we do a document in OneNote. And when this is up on YouTube, this OneNote document will be copy and pasted into a Google Doc. And I attach the link for your viewing pleasure in the description of the YouTube video. So if you're hanging out with us watching right now and you want to find these links that you just looked at, you want to read this information for yourself, do some more research on your own, and
there's a ton of links in this one.
And if you're going to go and do some more research, if you find other things that Nazeris may have missed, please let us know. We'll add them to the show notes, and we'll do and we do occasionally we'll do a mini segment that we call Sit Rep, and where we'll if we found new information or new information comes out via ISC or something like that, we'll do an update on it. And so if new information comes out, you find something interesting, we'll put it into an episode, and Nazeris will be like, hey, we're going to do a sit rep on science gameplay. If you remember in episode 40, we talked about science gameplay. Well, I found this, or this was shared by this person. We'll give you credit. So if you're aware of something, or if you find something, please send it our way. Leave it in the comments. Leave a link or something like that. Hop in the Discord, and say hey to us and let us know what you found. But we're always trying to add to this compendium of information that we're building with each episode.
We need to make a spreadsheet of our documents.
We just need to be like, hey, Darge, how you made that spreadsheet for all the ISCs and stuff like that? Can you make
we need one for
us?
Yeah. That's so bad.
Yeah. I'm
George, we're gonna
volunteering
hire you
for
as a
this,
data
this job.
analysis. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh
But yeah,
man.
this has been really great. Naz, I really appreciate all the hard work you put into this. This is really good stuff. I'm looking forward to
Thanks.
seeing more. And this is again one of those things that PES will allow for, because all these properties of these different things that you will be doing science on, all these properties would be stored and would be persisting, using PES. And so we've made a giant leap, towards the inevitability that is science gameplay. So Naz blinded me with science.
I'm sorry. I hope you get your vision back.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to play Star Citizen blind.
Yeah.
You got to get to bed.
I gotta get to bed. I gotta be up pretty early in the morning. I want to say thank you so much to everybody this evening for coming and hanging out with us and going over the roadmap.
Thanks, Grim, for
roundup and
rating
the shiny tracker reports. Thanks again. Yeah, big thanks to Star Jump, Grim and Ender for stopping by and rating us. I really appreciate that. By all means, if you're not familiar with their content, go check them out, especially the
get familiar with their
Star Jump
content.
Hangar. Yeah, the Star Jump Hangar video for the Kraken was phenomenal, and they got a new one coming out for the Endeavor. So that'd be a really great follow up on what Naz just talked about. We'll see how much they get.
And
right.
I will probably find more information, so we might link that in the show notes anyway. So
yeah, I'll put it in the show notes because this will actually probably be coming out on YouTube on Thursday anyway. So when that comes out, I'll add it in there. And let's see, we still have quite a people hanging out in chat. So who should we raid? I always forget to raid.
I'm trying to find somebody who's actually playing Star Citizen, because Smith is playing Space Engineers tonight. I probably will be over there in a minute. Let's see. As far as people I follow, we have Kitty Ate Cupcake, Henkin, Forest Green, all playing Star Citizen. Zero State is playing, but he has 380. Like maybe somebody a bit less. Everyone knows him.
Let's see. Raid.
Let's see. As far as recommended channels, somebody recommend. Oh, there we go. We have a chat recommendation.
Ronoxis. RONO. Ronoxis. All right.
Yes, that's in recommended channel. So I'm gonna follow over there as well.
All right.
Thank you everyone for coming. And as I do say at the end of the shows, as always, be kind.
Thanks, everybody.
I don't know how long it takes. Bye.